This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's special pod where we review Phil's trip to D23. Welcome back if you were just watching the last video. You might reckon we haven't changed our clothes because we're recording this directly after the last episode. If you're watching this, to our American listeners and viewers, hope you had a good, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving weekend. This should be the Monday, if I've done everything correctly. It should be coming out. So last week, we talked about Phil's brief trip into the Magic Kingdom, where he did the Christmas party, and he got into Epcot on a guest pass from a happy and friendly cast member. But, Phil, you went down because of the D23 event down there, and if you were if you were following him on Twitter, you saw a lot of really cool stuff, different everything from Skyliner routes to animation and people drawing to ugly sweaters and everything of the like. And Destination D23 Walt Disney World Resort 2021 presented by Topps. I don't know why I gave Topps a plug on our show, but that just happened. I'm just reading the screen. Phil, this is what I do. All right, Phil, why did you go down? And what did you learn? Let's just dive into it. You've got notes.
So
I'm going to react.
For those of you that don't know, D23 is the official fan club of Disney. So it's a separate entity from Disney, but they're obviously very, very connected. The name comes from the year that the Walt Disney Company was founded, which was 1923. Which, if you're doing your math in your head, yes, 2023 coming up will be the 100th anniversary of the company. We definitely were getting the impression during this that is going to be a big thing for the company. They're already kind of planning that. Actually, one of the things we got to see was we were the first people to see the logo they're going to be using for the 100 years. So that's definitely a big thing and kind of a big connection, I think, to D23 because of the name and that sort of thing.
Let me ask you a question. Are a lot of things maybe they were planning for the 50th anniversary going to be maybe brought over to the 100th year party celebration?
I think it's just going to – I feel like it's just going to almost be one continual thing, right? Because the 50 – and especially I think the original plan was to have more things ready to go for the start of the 50th. Mm-hmm. And because of COVID, now they're kind of doing things throughout the 50th. And there's not going to be, it's almost going to just keep flowing from celebration because next year then you have Epcot's 40th, and then the year after that you have
parties of
the company and stuff like that. So I
keep
think
coming back.
It's really just going to be kind of continual things. But I think the company is planning on the 100th being, people maybe were a little disappointed in the 50th for Walt Disney World. It sounds like they're planning to be pretty big for the 100th, but I guess we'll see. Yep. So Destination D23. So D23, they do a lot of special events. They have a magazine. They do sorts of things if you join as a member. But once a year, they do a convention or a kind of a celebration. They alternate which coast that they have it on. So usually what they do is the Expo is out in California, and that's actually the bigger of the two that they do. They said there's about 10 times as many people there. That there were about 2,000 people at this. There's about 20,000 people at that. Lots of celebrities and stuff like that because it's out there. This one's kind of more for, I think, fans of the parks and stuff. There was a lot of things kind of about like the history of the parks, and there's a whole session on like weird Walt Disney World and stuff like that. The nice thing about this one is everyone is guaranteed a seat. And it always takes place at Walt Disney World, generally at the Contemporary Resort, which is where this one was. And as you can see on the screen, excuse me, it was held from the November 19th to the 21st, with the 20th and 21st being kind of the heavy days of all the panels and that sort of thing. So on the 19th was the day we checked in for the event. We all got our credentials and stuff in the mail, so there wasn't too much to check in for. They just kind of scan your badge. You were given your gift, which was like a tote with a number of things in it. There was a pin, a patch, and a number of things like that. And also there were a number of exhibits to visit. You could do that throughout the weekend. I took advantage of doing it on this Friday since I had some time. I have some pictures from a few of them. Excuse me.
Which one would you like to bring up first to talk about?
The first one, I don't know if I have a picture for this, is the Walt Disney Archives presents 50 years of bringing home the magic. This had a lot of merchandise and it was separated by decade. Kind of said, like, here's all the souvenirs you could have gotten in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s.
Well, that's kind of neat.
So it was kind of neat to see the evolution of merchandise. The big thing was in the middle of that room was the Dreammobile.
Oh, yes. That's all over Twitter.
Yeah. So that was like, all right, my weekend's already made since I got to be like within spitting distance, just like so close to it. The next room next to that, and that's what I have the picture that has Figment and the robot butler. This was called Walt Disney Imagineering Presents 50 Years of Dreaming and Doing. So this had all sorts of stuff from Imagineering, so things that were in Ride. So in that picture, you can obviously see a Figment that was in Journey to Imagination. The snail was in the Universe of Energy. The robot butler from Horizons. There's stuff you could see further down from the Great Movie Ride. They had like just tons and tons of just stuff that was going on, but also just about how Imagineering does it. And that was really neat to see. And then the last exhibit, I didn't have a picture of this though, was called the Walt Disney Imagineering Illusioneering Lab. And they had actual Imagineers there showing off stuff that they've either done in the past or are working on now. And they were there like talking about like projects. And it's kind of like, they basically just are like, we had this idea, we're trying this out. And like, maybe it'll show up in like something later, maybe it won't.
Well, that's always neat.
But it was kind of neat just to talk to the people directly about what they're doing, what are they trying, and why are they doing this, and you got to see some stuff up real close. So that was really neat. They also had a lot of photo ops. One of them is that other photo you were showing. Excuse me. We got to sit in the ride vehicle that will be used for Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind.
Comfy.
Yeah, thing's huge. It's very substantial. Definitely felt more like a dark ride than a vehicle than a roller coaster.
My first impression, it's like just a slightly smaller version of the Rise vehicle.
It felt very similar to that. Also, just so for people that know, a lot of room. I saw a lot of people who are, to put it bluntly, of a larger size, sitting in it, and they fit very comfortably. So I think this is going to be a ride that most people will be able to ride.
Now, conversely, will the smaller folks, the kiddos that are just tall enough to ride this, are they going to be jostled around? Or are they going to be secure?
I think it felt pretty secure because it is an individual lap bar, so it'll come all the way down to them. It's not like Big Thunder where you kind of have to hold your little kids with your arm, where there's one bar. So I think they'll feel pretty safe in there. It feels pretty molded and stuff like that. So if they're tall enough to ride it, I think they'll feel secure.
I mean, Disney's never going to make people feel unsafe. I'm just looking at this. Each seat is wider, but I mean, you can't really see into the vehicle, so maybe like the seat kind of, if the actual seat part keeps you safe. Steady.
And one of the tidbits we did learn during the week was that this ride will be opening in the summer of 2022. But prior to this, we only knew it was going to be 2022. We still don't have an exact date, but at least we know it's summertime, which I don't know if that was good or bad, but at least we know when it's coming. So if you're planning on, at least if you know you're coming for the next holiday season next year, it'll definitely be open for that. So the other big thing that we got to do for this first day is we were able to make a reservation for two things. One was shopping at Mickey's of Glendale, which is a cast member store that is where they sell officially licensed or for Disney Imagineering. So I'm actually wearing one of the shirts I got there.
I was noticing that. I like that.
I spent way too much money there. But I got stuff from me, stuff from my wife, stuff from the kids. People are like, I was posting pictures to people like, oh, can you get that for me, and that sort of thing. So it's just really neat stuff that's only available there. All the tags are specifically for Imagineering. And just some really unique things. I went up getting some books and stuff too that they had. Some of the authors were there to sign the books. So just cool. A really neat opportunity. It's just not generally you have to be a cast member, know somebody, or go on a tour or something like that to have access to this store. So it's neat that they had that there. The other thing that we did was we signed up for was a preview of Encanto, which is the new Disney animation movie.
Is it Encanto or Encanto? Are you mispronouncing that, or am I mispronouncing that?
The way they said it in the movie was definitely Encanto.
Okay. So I've been wrong all this time, which is not uncommon.
So we after I did that, I went over to Disney Springs. I did some more shopping, and then I checked in for my preview. It's the first time I've ever really been into a preview thing like this. They gave us a plastic bag that we all had to put our cell phones in and seal it up, so we couldn't take pictures or video of the show or anything like that. They had security guards like walking through the theater, making watching people and stuff like that. So it's the first time I've ever experienced anything like that.
You're a VIP at this point,
apparently. But that was really neat to have that opportunity. And if you didn't listen to our last episode, this was our DBC recommends. I think it's a great movie.
All right, so with your preview event, the kind of things that you were kind of checking out, kind of freestyle like, right? Yeah. You got day one. You've already mentioned that you got general admission. You're kind of sitting down. They did some kind of intro things. And then you're coming in and out. Like you didn't have assigned seats. Right. So what was day one like? What did you consume that whole day?
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff to come out of it. It started with the kickoff where Michael Bargo, head of D23, did the welcome and kind of, why are we here? What's going to go over? He did also surprise everyone that night we were going to get a sneak preview of the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye. So that was a nice little bonus we had.
And I made a joke on Twitter, like I know you're always watching the or episodes early, like in like midnight. I'm like, but a couple weeks early. I mean, this like so. Our first recording for Hawkeye, you're like, I don't even remember what happened. It's been so long since I've seen this. You know what's going to happen.
I'll watch it again. It's fine. But shortly after that, then kind of the first real panel started, which was the they called it Connections, a look at the future of Disney parks, experience, and products, where the head of that unit, Josh Damaro, was there to present about that. And so he really wanted to talk about how Disney connects to you and who and what it is. So he went through a lot of what's coming out or what's going to be coming, what's also been returning. He talked around the world. He talked about Hong Kong, Tokyo, Shanghai, lots of little nuggets there.
So we had a conversation on Discord because you were bringing this up. I wasn't. I forget what I was doing last Saturday, but I was basically out all day.
Yeah.
And I was scrolling through all of your updates and kind of reading them, and I'm like, I've been scrolling through all of your disappointment all day long because everybody was expecting some huge revelations, right?
So, I do want to say we did get a couple like really good nuggets. We got like things returning. They said, we confirmed Main Street Electrical Parade coming back to California. Festival of Fantasy is going to be coming back to Florida. Fantasmic's coming back to both coasts. We found out they're going to be adding a new scene to Fantasmic. So it's great to kind of hear about things coming back.
It's great that we're getting confirmed what we thought was going to come back anyway.
Yeah.
Eventually.
And there were some new things. We got the date for Guardians. We got a couple other new things, but nothing like big, right? And so I think it wasn't like, I think maybe the biggest thing was they're going to be doing updates to, Downtown Disney in California, and they had about the new DVC tower there. They had new pictures of that. Magic Bands are going to be coming to Disneyland. They had a little bit more about Magic Band Plus. But it was like, okay, it feels like these things are things we knew, and the way they're talking them up, you wouldn't think that. They were like, he was like, and this is back, and this is back, and churros are back. I'm like, okay, great, churros are back. Like that's, everywhere is way further back than you are. Let's not pat ourselves on the back because churros are back. Like
that was the general thinking, or that's the general thought process of people that weren't there, right? I mean, you had the excitement of being there, being part of it, and all this other stuff. But ultimately, it's just like you're a Disney fanatic if you're there, right?
Yeah,
like you read all the bit of news, that where the Fantasmic's being reworked. If you're on Blog Mickey with all those pictures, you know it's being worked. We're getting it back.
Yeah,
you knew that Disney was going to bring back their daytime parade at some point,
right?
right? You know, in the electrical parade out on the West Coast, you knew that was coming back. So there's not big surprises for people.
Yeah. So there were some neat things to see if you're in the room. He did pull out the real lightsaber that he showed before, so we got to see that in
think
person.
That was on Twitter.
So that was very cool. They showed us a preview of Project Exo, which is like these new exoskeletons they're building to be able to do larger walk around characters and stuff like that. So there's definitely some new things, but it was kind of like, all right, hoping for a little bit more. I know you don't normally get as much news at Destination D23 as you do at the Expo, but it kind of was like, all right, that wasn't as great as we were hoping. Now, fortunately, I think the rest of the session delivered greatly. So it wasn't like, I was really happy by the end of it. But kind of after the morning, a lot of people were like, I don't know about this, like a little down. Yeah. So the next session, though, after that was stuff that was right up my alley. There was a thing called Keep Walt Disney World Weird, where they showed old photos of marketing that was used for Walt Disney World. People that really didn't know what was going on, so they used the wrong castle in the photos marketing it. They showed an old Eastern Airlines commercial, which was really creepy. Throughout the event, they showed a lot of old commercials and stuff like that for Walt Disney World. And that was all just super, super fun. They were doing trivia challenges throughout it, which was fun. They did a session then called Planes, Trains, and Monorails, Walt Disney World on the Move, which I was like, this sounds like our DBC expedition.
Yes. People are listening, Phil.
Yeah. It was hosted by Brett Iwan. He did a number of things. He's the voice of Mickey Mouse now. So it was really neat to hear him and doing his Mickey Mouse voice at sometimes, but also he's just seems like a really fun guy. They talked all about just like Walt Disney wanted to get people on the move and why transportation is so important. Mentioned about refurbishing the trains, the railroads while they're down. They showed a picture of engine number 1 being completely refurbished. One thing that was really neat was they showed different things they were considering, and I think that's the picture I gave you to show different configurations they were considering for the Skyliner.
I thought this was really cool.
And obviously, if you're watching on screen, I believe it's option 7 is the one that ultimately got built. But there were other ones. Many of them had a direct route going from Epcot to Disney Hollywood Studios. The one I found really interesting was the alternate option 8, which actually had them going into Epcot at Germany. So not using the International Gateway entrance, but I guess it would have been a third entrance into Epcot. But these types of things, I think, were what people that were there, like you said, were the diehard Disney fans. Like, we know a lot of the news, but this stuff is the stuff we kind of die for. So
we want to know what Imagineering was cooking up at the time and what they were considering. The what ifs.
Exactly. Then they had they were doing the different decades. So they had, up next was what they called Walt's 70s World, but later on they had Walt's 80s World and 90s World, and they were kind of going, what happened at Walt Disney World in the 70s, what happened in the 80s, and that sort of thing. You got to see a lot of the merchandise and things like that. It was kind of more fun looking at all the silliness that happened over time. Then we had our lunch break then. In the afternoon session, the first session was about Drawn to Life, inside Disney's first collaboration with Cirque Du Soleil. So they had a number of the people who helped develop that show, including Eric Greenberg, who is a famous Disney animator, probably most famous known for animating the genie in Aladdin, but he's done a number of other things. He helped contribute to Drawn to Life. He did the animation that's used in it, but it was also kind of a consultant on the whole show. That was neat to hear sort of the process about going to it, and I know a lot of people have seen that show, have really been raving about it. So that was kind of cool to see. They then had a panel called World Building for Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. This one, I should have mentioned too, during the Josh D'Amaro session, they showed some clips of him testing out some of the things in the Galactic Star Cruiser.
Right.
Showed the lightsaber training, and when you're on the bridge and you're doing some of like the targeting of the TIE fighters. The reaction to that was underwhelming. It didn't look super great. So everyone's like, really? You're charging how much for that? This session made it sound much more impressive. This was more about the world building and the storyline that was going to go on and how you would interact with the different characters and who they are and how you
Sure.
would make choices and stuff like that. So that made it much more impressive, or you're like, wow, they're really going all in on this sort of immersion level to it. That was hosted by Ashley Eckstein, who is the voice of Ahsoka Tano and has her universe and stuff like that. She's very fun as well and a very nice person. And so it's good to see that. That was interesting. They showed off some of the
Nice.
food. That's the picture I sent you there. So that all the dining seems very like a key part of this day and stuff like that. So if you're into trying kind of different food but still approachable, that was.
I
Gonna
have a
be
picture of you holding a beer in front of the Encanto billboard. I want to apologize to everybody. Like my video's been like frozen-ish for a while. We've had some technical difficulties here, but we're gonna get through it. Sorry for that, by the way, guys.
And moving on, they talked about Walt Disney World's 50th at something called the Magical Entertainment for the Walt Disney World's 50th celebration. That's where they talked about some of the things that were coming. I think that's where they mentioned about Fantasmic having the new scene. It's also when they talked to, and if you have the right picture for this, it's for Disney's Adventure Friends Cavalcade. It's a new cavalcade that's going to be coming to the Magic Kingdom. It's the biggest cavalcade they've ever had. They listed off all the characters there. It sounded like 30 different characters were going to be on this cavalcade. It's the first time they're having Disney and Pixar characters on the same cavalcade. So that was kind of something people were excited for. They just sort of went over everything, like what's going on with Kite Tails and Harmonious. They talked about the details, how it was developed, and the beacons of magic and stuff like that. So
Well, a couple. Let me stop you there. So a couple things to talk about. Like I like that they're keeping the cavalcades, because I think out of everything, people always love the spontaneous, like see a couple characters, sing some songs, and I can't imagine that they're very expensive to put out there, because it's one float, anywhere between 5 and 20 people that are operating it, from the cast members that are just kind of following it to the actual actors and entertainment that's kind of going along with it. And then you've got what you mentioned, and then the rumor about Harmonious and stuff like that, and some of the dessert parties. Listened to a couple podcasts over the last week that they're mentioning how they're scrambling to find paid areas to see this and not people complain about it.
Yeah, so they
they
didn't talk about the dessert parties, but yeah, people have been talking about it. Where are the different viewing areas to have that?
Mm-hmm.
We did notice that on Friday night. If you listened to our last episode, I was at Epcot Friday night. It seemed like so many areas were roped off for VIP or private parties. I'm assuming it was a lot of the people that were in the celebrities and stuff that were in town for this.
Right.
But yeah, there's an area by France. There's a couple areas in the front, but a lot of those, and the same goes if you do the cruise, where you pay for the cruise that takes you in to watch the viewing of the show. Mm-hmm. Those aren't like really straight on at the Stargate, the center circle. So it's going to be interesting to see, how these spot, and you can see the fireworks, but you can't really see a key element of the show. So
sure.
I don't know how those are going to work. But they just talked about how there were over 240 different performers, 12 different languages used in Harmonious. They just giving you some of the background of some of these things. So again, not a session where we got a lot of new stuff. They did talk a little bit about the reimagining of Nemo the Musical. It's coming next year. It's called Into the Big Blue and Beyond. But again, it's just kind of little tidbits. Nothing.
Are we excited about that?
I'm excited that something's coming back. I think, hopefully they rework it. Maybe it's a little shorter. That was always, in some ways, like a negative to that show was how long it was. You kind of had to commit quite a bit of time to seeing it.
Yeah. I mean, not that you're doing much of else in that park, but
so we'll see. Hopefully it kind of gives a little bit, kind of uses the bones of the show that was
sure.
there, but maybe pluses.
I mean, I'm declaring right now, I'm over interesting news about things coming back.
Yep.
Like, it's time. Everything should come back. It's time. Just announce it. Let's get through it. We're no longer excited that X is coming back. It should be back.
Right. And I think that was kind of the general sentiment with a lot of it's like, okay, it's great that you're saying this is coming back, but like it should have been back already. Like these distance character meets, this could have happened 6 months, a year ago. Like, don't brag about these be back now.
What did somebody shout out? Were the trams?
Yes. So they didn't mention anything about the trams, although when they were talking about the all the different modes of transportation, they did highlight how many trams they have, and everyone's like, yeah, they're just sitting there. Somebody did shout out when Josh D'Amaro was leaving the stage, what about the trams? So yeah, people are definitely a little on edge. I mean, we talked about it before, kind of that negative vibe. I mean, overall, it was a very positive spirit. I don't want to give the misimpression that people are negative or something like that, but just I don't know. It feels like Disney's.
It's like our last week or 2 weeks ago that we
Yeah.
talked about.
Like
There's an
Disney's
edge.
just Disney's just in this mode where they're still in pandemic mode and think that just having anything back is a big deal. When the rest of the world or rest of the country and all the other theme parks are like, no, we're pretty, we're basically full back. Like
On the trams, like I've never, since I was a young kid, I've never been in the parking lot at Magic Kingdom. I've never had to use the TTC other than zipping by it on a monorail, right? So, in my quick getaway back in September, we parked, right? Because we drove down. And I'm just thinking about my upcoming trip. Like, if we drove, my dad would never be able to make it. Like, he's going to have to ride a scooter and all that other kind of stuff that goes
exactly.
with it. Like, what is he going to do? Like, if we're driving, we're not getting a scooter somehow to the park. We'd have to get one there for him. But, like, he would never be able to walk that. Like, people that got sprained ankles or broken legs or other disabilities or whatever. I mean, like, it's a nightmare. I mean, for a company that's got keys about inclusivity, that just doesn't mean your lifestyle. That also means your handicap or your disabilities or your challenges that you have every single. I mean, it's not very inclusive if you're a war veteran and you lost your leg or something else like that, and you can't get to the park because you got to hop from 2 miles away to get to the monorail station. I mean, that's very insensitive. I apologize, but still, I mean, like, it's not helping the people that truly need transportation and assistance. I don't know.
No, I hear you. I think it's a small thing, but it's a big thing. And
I'm bogging down negativity on this.
All right,
I apologize. That's your story. Go ahead. What's the next?
So
Yes.
positive is the next panel was, I thought, one of the absolute best panels of the whole day. It was called "Designing the Magic, the Art and Imagery of Walt Disney World," and it was all these artists that work with the company, but it talked about which artists from the past, Herb Ryman and stuff like that they're inspired by.
Mm-hmm.
And it talked about how that reflects in the styling of today, how it would reflected on the development of the parks, and it looked at the different art styles and stuff, and kind of the different concept arts. It was really cool. They talked about different.
It's like connecting the dots through history, right? It's like what
but
influences
the history
what.
through art. It was really neat. And they mentioned
like
that the women, a book is coming out in March called "The Women of Imagineering," which I think will be great. They talked about Blaine Gibson, who did a lot of the statue and sculpture work. And one little fact, and I think that's the picture I sent you, if you have it there, that has the picture of Roy and Minnie. He sculpted that. And one little tidbit they shared was that he purposely designed it so that when they're holding hands, it's Roy's hand is under Minnie's. So it's like he's supporting Minnie, just like he supported his brother Walt through life. And so the symbolism in that. And so I don't know, like tidbits like that you hear at things like this that you don't always get, which I thought was kind of great.
My broadcasting software is not choosing to show that picture, but I have it. You could tweet it out if you like. Sorry about that.
So then they went through Walt's 80s World, and then they had a fun session on the park stars of Walt Disney World. This was another one of kind of those just having fun and talking about the park stars of the past. They did a little trivia thing where you had to guess who they were talking about, whether it was Cosmic Ray, whether it was Push the Trash Can, whether it was Figment and Dreamfinder, kind of all these stars of the park that weren't necessarily IP that was added to the park. They were created for the park, and it could have just been the person from Misadventure Falls over at Typhoon Lagoon and things like, or just somebody who showed up in like the oil rigs and the Vikings and Maelstrom and stuff like that, kind of like all those things. One thing I did write down that I thought was funny that I didn't know is they talked about the chief in Spaceship Earth at the very beginning, with the caveman scene. And they say everyone affectionately calls him Chief Umbade, just because that's all he really says as you're going by is Umbade, Umbade, Umbade. So they call him Chief Umbade. And they always say the way he's talking and pointing to the walls, it's like it was Earth's first PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
So I thought that was pretty good.
I always like, I mean, the best parts of these things are the little inside stories, because we get to consume Disney as they want us to consume it, right? It's the show, it's everything else like that. But the people that work there that help create it, from the newest cast member to the oldest veteran, depending on the department, they've got like these inside stories, the behind the scenes. I love those type of stories.
Yeah. So this panel, like this and the art one, were some of my favorite ones. The ones that were Josh talking about things that are already back, or even the Star Cruiser one, which had some interesting stuff. It still felt like almost like a sales pitch for why you should book the Star Cruiser.
Like those all the other Disney vloggers.
Those were kind of like
it.
Yeah, those were kind of lesser panels to me. But these ones where you got all these insights about like why things were done the way they were was cool.
Nice.
Then we had a dinner break, which I had a nice dinner. We went over to get food at Captain Cook's. I met up with Red Herring from the Discord server and her fiance and friend, and we all went over and had dinner together. So that was great.
Oh, very cool.
In the evening, they had a session on the music of Encanto, where they had, people were hosting it. Everyone was secretly hoping Lin-Manuel Miranda would show up for that. He did not. He did a little video message and had things, via video was explaining things, but he was not there in person. They did have the person who did the score was there to talk about it. And then they had the actress who does the voice of one of the characters in there was there. Okay. So it was neat to kind of hear, kind of the motivation behind, what they were thinking when they were recording this song and why was it written this way. And, they talk about most of the songs are written in 4/4, but this song was written in 3/4 for they were trying to convey this and stuff like that. It did feel a little long. It was like an hour and a half. And
whoa,
they kind of showed like all the clips and stuff, and everyone had just seen it the day before. So it's kind of like, all right, this is, interesting, but probably
would have been better if you saw this before the movie, or that would have just spoiled it.
I think if we weren't seeing the movie, then this would have been cool to see, knowing the movie was coming out. I think they could have just picked some highlights of it and maybe done 45 minutes worth versus showing every single song and every single score element and stuff like that. After that, then they showed the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye. It was another time when we had to put our phones into a plastic bag and stuff like that.
Of course.
I guess I could do my DBC recommends now. I definitely recommend Hawkeye. It's lots of humor, lots of action. I think it felt the most like an Avengers type movie. Kind of these other Disney Plus kind of have their own vibe to them. This felt kind of more like classic MCU.
That's always good.
Yep. So I think it'll be enjoyed. People like it.
As good as Loki, because I think we all think that Loki is the best.
I mean, it's hard
Disney
to know.
Plus
I've
show,
only
right?
seen the first 2 episodes. I think Loki.
We knew Loki was special from the trailer.
Yeah, I mean,
though.
I think Loki's just kind of unique and special. I think this one's more fun. Maybe I don't know if fun's the right word.
Is this just going to be like introducing a new character and just an event, like an adventure type of like?
Yeah,
it's
so
gonna be
obviously,
self-contained. It's just.
Yeah, I think everyone knows a bit of the plot that Kate Bishop is being introduced in this, played by Haley Steinfeld, and I mean she's all over it. She's great in it. She shows so many different she's definitely a 3-dimensional character, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of shows how, Clint Barnes Hawkeye is kind of evolving in his life, trying to get past everything that happened with the Avengers and just have a normal life, and then he keeps getting sucked back into it and having to deal with her and stuff like that. So I don't want to give away too much. But yeah, it's a little bit more just kind of like a fun action adventure type thing, but with a lot of humor too. Almost, I don't know if Indiana Jones is the right thing, but like that kind of a feel to it.
Well, it seems like it's like the antithesis of the Captain America thing, where that one was gritty and dark and like, little violent. This one is more of a slapstick.
Yeah, I mean, this has a lot of
adventure,
some hard action too. I don't.
No,
say
of course,
not that, but yeah, it's definitely I think a little more humorous, a little bit lighter. Yeah. It takes place at Christmas in New York, so there's a lot of Christmas things going on and stuff. So,
which I appreciate.
Then day 2 started. Day 2, Sunday, November 21st. The first panel here was the Disney Plus download, where they were going over different shows coming out on Disney Plus. They had the author who did Diary of a Wimpy Kid that's coming out, so he was out to talk about it. They had somebody from a new cooking show.
Character.
I think the best thing they did, and the part when everybody kind of flipped out, was Kermit showed up. Kermit the Frog showed up live. And so they were interviewing Kermit, and that was great. And they didn't even hide. I mean, spoiler alert, Kermit's a puppet. But they didn't even like hide the puppeteer. Like he was just kind of down there. But it was really great. He was
That's
doing
fun.
just a lot of kind of ad-libbing jokes and stuff like that. So that was probably the best thing we saw during that session. Then they showed like a 10-minute clip of some new Will Smith National Geographic show that, I mean, it seemed interesting. I don't know if we need to see 10 minutes of it, but it was what it was. Then they went through a session on the Disney Wish. Really good information. They revealed more about the dining, especially, and some of the shows. If you were a cruiser and going to be on the Disney Wish, this was probably very exciting for you. I do not have a trip planned on the Disney Wish, so I was less interested in it. And, again, another one that felt a little like a sales pitch, but, it's always exciting to see some of the new stuff. And I do think the dining there is going to be interesting. The next session, which was good, was called The Dawn of the Disney World. This had some really great people that were being interviewed for it, former cast members. All three of them, I don't think they knew each other at the time, but they happened to all be working at the Contemporary on October 1st, 1971. So I thought that was neat. One of them was working at the Preview Center before then, so it had even been there before. And so they just talked really great stories about how it was, like,
just memories.
Yeah, even before Walt Disney World was built, and working here and working with Walt and stuff like that. And just their passion for the company. I mean, really, really came.
Are they
through.
all working still for working for Disney?
They're either working or like Disney legend type things. I know one of them was George Kalagrigas, who used to be president of Walt Disney World. He's still working there in a different role. I think the other two are retired, but like Disney legends. So I thought it was really, really neat. This one was also hosted by one of the authors of the book that was coming out. That's called the Framing Our Portrait of Walt Disney World. I wound up buying the book and had him sign it. So that was neat, and talked to him about how much I liked this panel. I thought this was really good. The last kind of connected to this separately, though, was an interview with Disney legend Dick Nunis. He had so many great stories. He has a book coming out that I think everyone is going to want to, and he didn't hold any punches. Like he's like, I'm past being like having to worry about what people think about me. He told this great story about when he was working at Disneyland. It was kind of like a senior person, but like kind of, a day-to-day line manager type person. And Walt asked him, he goes, was there anything I can do to make your job easier? He said, well, actually, Walt, right now the workers aren't allowed, they're allowed to smoke when they're in their, off backstage or at their room or something like that, but they're not allowed to smoke, when they're walking around the park. However, when you walk around, you smoke wherever you want to smoke. And his response is, yeah, but I'm Walt Disney. And he said, I know, but just, if you asked me if there was something you could do, and that's something that, people note that, and if you could not do that, that would be great. And he said, after that day, he never saw Walt smoke in the park. That obviously Walt, so he actually listened to him and that sort of thing. So that got a great reaction from the crowd. So I think I've heard
that story somewhere before. That sounds familiar.
I hadn't heard it. I mean, maybe it's out, but he has a book coming out too. So if there's a lot of stories like that, I bet that would be a good one. But he was with the company. He's been with the company forever. So I think that would be a great book to have. Next, then there was a lunch break. After that, there was a session on Delicious Disney, which was 50 years of Walt Disney World food. So they had a lot of recipes in there, which was great. One thing I noted was they mentioned there were 3 things that they originally thought started at Disneyland and came over, but they found out were actually premiered at Walt Disney World. One of them was Dole Whips, premiered at Walt Disney World. One was Mickey Bars, and one was Character Dining. So all 3 of those started at Walt Disney World versus starting at Disneyland.
Now, I mean, like, I have no interest in all the recipes and stuff like that. I mean, like, I love a good Disney recipe. I make them, like the cornbread and everything, Dole Whips and everything else like that. I couldn't sit through a panel unless it's like Gordon Ramsay making like recipes and stuff like that. The history of the food, that always interests me. Like,
and they had this,
like the tidbits and stuff.
They had a whole part about the handwich and stuff like that. So I think this book will have those recipes, but it is like the history of the food and how these recipes came to be and stuff.
Might
so I
be
think
worth picking up.
If you're into that. The next session was From the Vault, Merchandise Memories of Walt Disney World. This was a really fun session. This is about basically the Vault collection that started coming out. They did mention that there's going to be additional stuff coming from the Vault collection throughout the 50th anniversary. They showed off some of the stuff. There's a Park Maps Spirit jersey coming out. There's a Park Maps Crocs coming out.
I saw that image that you tweeted out.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of stuff. So just hearing from the people who developed it and kind of like how they got all these images and they had to like kind of recreate things because back, in the 70s or whatever, they didn't use digital things. It was all like paper. So they had to like recreate things, but how they
why haven't they made recreations of all the park maps? Like I'd buy those and frame them.
Yeah, they had the one, but yeah, I don't know why they haven't done more. But
like I want the one from when it opened and when they did major changes to the map art. Like I would buy that or buy them. Give me a good one for $20.
Yeah,
because behind me you can't see it because it's angled differently. But like I've got a Disneyland picture from like the original opening. And I got to get some Ukrainian printer to print it because you can't buy it anywhere. I got it off of Etsy somewhere, some Etsy shop.
But it was just neat to just talk like, what's your favorite piece of merchandise? So a lot of them had, they all shared like photos from when they were kids and stuff like. And it's kind of neat. Like I remember when I was a kid, then they had these light up visors, and guess what? We're making light up visors now. Like it was kind of like everything they loved as a kid. They're like, we're making them again now.
Yeah.
So it was kind of fun, and like it's definitely another group that you could feel is passionate about what they do. So that was neat. The next session was the secrets and stories of Walt Disney World galleries. They went through, I didn't know how many galleries there are. You think about the ones in maybe, in Epcot and stuff like that, but they're all over the parks and resorts and stuff like that. And they went through how many exhibits they have and how often they get them and, just like where they got them. And one neat tidbit they said was when they were developing the jazz exhibit that they had connected to soul, they were trying to get like a trumpet or something from Louis Armstrong, and all the other curators were like, oh, you'll never get one, blah, blah, blah. And they called up the person who like has the museum up in New York, and they were like, I have the perfect trumpet for you. It's the trumpet he used when he played an album of Disney songs.
Huh.
So that's the one that's on display in Epcot, is the one that he used when he recorded that album.
Are all of these different exhibits like the one or two pieces that you see at like a resort that's there randomly, and then like in the foyer type of thing, or it's like in a restaurant or something?
It's not if it's just like no, not just one of those. There's specific exhibits. I know they went through all the ones in the park, but like so at Animal Kingdom Lodge, there's like all African art. That's considered one of them. And there's I think there's some at the Riviera. There's like a room that has a whole bunch of exhibits from when Walt's traveling and stuff like. So there's something
mostly
like 30,
permanent.
30 across. Yeah, more permanent. That are like 30 or something across the parks and resorts. Then they had Walt's 90s World, and then it kind of fit. The last true session was called Musical Attractions of Walt Disney World. That had Imagineers Tom Fitzgerald and John Dennis. This was pretty funny, where they went through just kind of how a lot of the songs were developed for the attractions. They went through some of the stuff that's being developed for Galactic Star Cruiser. They talked about what's being developed for Guardians Cosmic Rewind. They kind of dropped this, and I don't know if they were supposed to, that the new soundtrack that's being developed that they, I guess, showed a clip of before for Epcot, and they're like, and that'll be out when the park is ready and complete in 2023. And everyone's like, wait, did we know that things were going to be done at Epcot in 2023? So everyone's kind of like, yeah. So that's something that was coming, and we didn't know if we were supposed to get that. But that was really interesting, where they talked about like how the music was made and what was trying to be conveyed and that sort of thing. And then it ended with what they called a fantastic finale, where they had a lot of musical performers. Kind of the big name, I guess, was I hope I'm saying her name, Cindy Williams. Cindy Williams Winters. Why am I saying the name wrong? But she's from Broadway. She's been in The Lion King and some few other things, and she sang a few songs. Other performers were too. Just kind of recapping off the event for the most part. Then there was a dinner break, and then at the very last thing was the Disney Plus season streaming Ugly Sweater Party. which everyone's like, I don't know what does that mean? Like, what is this going to be?
Right.
I was like, well, I'll go check it out. If it's kind of boring, I'll just leave. But it was actually pretty fun. They had, they gave out these kind of Santa hats that were themed to Hawkeye. It was snowing in the room. They had, you could go character meets. They had Olaf, and then Mickey and Minnie were there to meet. They had food. They had a DJ who's actually really good at getting people up to dance. They had the people came out to teach how to draw, including Eric Greenberg came out and said, "Here's how you draw Pluto." So here, literally getting drawing instructions from a legendary Disney animator was kind of cool.
It's not too bad. Not shabby.
Yeah. So overall, it was kind of fun. I was hanging out with Red Herring again and stuff like that. So it was a good time to see her and say goodbye to them. So overall, it was definitely better than we thought it might be. And that kind of ended it. And then on Monday, I just had my Tragical Express back to the airport and headed home. So that was it for Destination D23.
It sounds like it was worth it.
After I kept doing more stops to Mickey of Glendale to keep buying more and more things. But
it sounds like it was worth it. Worth the time.
I think it was. Like I said, after the first session, we're kind of like, I don't know. But like all those like more kind of tidbitty things and how things were developed and the inspiration for this, getting those stories and just being in the room with huge Disney fans. And I don't know. It was fun. We got a lot of little freebies too, like free posters and stuff like that. So
that's cool.
It was all good. So I definitely recommend it. This one's nice because, you're guaranteed seats. It's not like the expo where you have to like camp out overnight if you want to seat in the big panels and stuff like that. It's probably not something I would do all the time. It's only every other year. So, 2 years from now, I'll see if I want to go back again, but it was great to get down there, experience this. It was great to meet up with people, whether it was Ryan Teets or Zach or Red Herring or whoever else I met. So I was really excited about that. But overall, yeah, thrilled to get away. It's nice to be, we keep kind of talking about like how there's that negative vibe, but there was so much positivity in the room for 90% of it, and it just made me happy about Disney again, happy to be there. So,
I mean, like when we talk about the negativity, right, and we're not talking like it's 50-50, right? Because pre-pandemic, it was like maybe 98% positivity, 2% negativity, and it's just like complaining about parking fees and a 1% raise in ticket prices and all that other type of stuff, right? Post-COVID, the edge is, I would say it's like 92% happiness and maybe 8% negativity, right?
Yeah.
And you could easily bring that 92 back to a 98 with a couple of like easy announcements type of thing. But it's just one thing after another. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. So when we talk about negativity, just to reinforce your statement to make sure people aren't misunderstanding us, it's like there's still 90% plus happiness and joy about going to Disney World. We might not be staying on property and spending $500 a night, but we're going to love every minute that we are on property and make sure we get down there.
This whole trip definitely reinvigorated me. I mean, like I said, doesn't mean I'm going to be going back next week and paying to stay on property like you said, but I just felt like I want to come back again. I'm happy I'm here, so. I
mean, like I have to say, like, you had your trip. We were talking about this when we were talking about the trip report of the Christmas party that you went to.
Yeah.
When I went down with my wife and kids, it was our first trip that we had just one stroller, but, nothing crazy, no infants, no toddlers. My wife was able to go down without having to take care of babies or being pregnant. And that ability to move and move quick, like you get out of the monotony or you get out of like all the mundane details that you have to worry about when you go down. Like for you, I can imagine it's like I don't want to say you're free of your family because that's a horrible thing to say. But you're free of having to hustle around 3 kids and make sure you stick to your plan and go through the whole rigmarole of a typical Disney World vacation. And you're still on schedule, but you only have to worry about you. So there's certain stress that kind of goes away with that kind of lends itself to a better vacation. And meanwhile, I had 3 small children and running around, but it was still less stress than having an 8-month-old or a pregnant wife, right? So my stress level was still a lot higher than yours, but not as high as it was before with all the other stuff you had to take care of. So, I mean, I totally get that. And I don't know. I think Disney fans out there, if you can do like a getaway vacation, if you got a big family, see if you can sneak out with just your spouse.
It's a good point.
Or
even just do a quickie trip like you did with your family. I know Matt Pato had his kind of quickie trip. Like, I think that can kind of reinvigorate you when you're not like, I got to get everything done. We got to maximize every hour. Like just go and enjoy it, and like don't worry about squeezing out every ounce of it. I know not everybody can. It's not cheap to do, but if you're feeling overwhelmed by planning a next Disney trip, maybe try to do a.
It doesn't have to be expensive though.
Do a light trip,
I mean, like every married couple should have like a getaway every once in a while, a couple times a year, right? At least I hope. And I've been doing a very poor job doing that. But like, you could stay off property for $60 a night if you want to. You can, I mean, it's not gonna be the best of combinations, but it'll be like a Hampton or a Hilton property. You could probably, whatever. Then getting down there, you could find an inexpensive time of the year to get down there or drive, right? Extended trip. So just see if you can find somebody who can watch the kids for the weekend. Yep. And the most expensive part of your trip is just getting into the parks, basically. $200 a day or whatever it is for you and a spouse, or you and a best friend, or a sibling, or whoever you're gonna have a lot of fun with. I could definitely see how that kind of just reinvigorates the Disney. It gets rid of the stress.
Exactly.
And just to kind of leave on one note, my sister likes doing that with her husband every once in a while, and she says, after a while we just stop planning trips, we just go, and even with their kids. And I can see how that, luckily she's DVC, so she has the luxury of being able to go down often and not have to worry about, like, if you don't go on Mine Train, you're never going to go on because you're going to probably see it.
For sure.
So I was on the same boat as you. And now we're getting into the topic stuff away from the D23 trip. But, like, I understood what you meant by, like, the reinvigoration, because when we went down, we didn't have a plan. We'll just go to the parks and see what we could do and not feel bad if we missed something.
Yeah. And
you did the same thing. You went down. You're just gonna do Disney. That's all you were. It wasn't a Disney vacation. It was you're just going down to do Disney stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes maybe that's what people need. Don't worry about the trip part. Focus on the Disney part.
Yeah, it's tough to do though, right? Because you're spending that much money. You're balancing all these different components. And when you go down on a weekend, it's not that expensive comparatively, anyway, in context of a week-long trip.
Yeah.
Things to think about. But Phil, thanks for sharing that with everybody.
Hope you enjoyed it all.
Go to these Twitter feed and scroll through everything. Most of it's still fresh from last weekend, or I guess now it's 2 weekends ago, right? Yes. No. Yep. No. 1 weekend ago. I'm getting. Actually, it'll be after next weekend. So literally, it is 2 weekends, but it'll be like within the last 8 days.
Like 10 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so check that out. If you have any questions for Phil, or if you want him to kind of go over anything else in detail, hop onto Discord and ask questions. I'd be more than happy to fill you out. Or on social media, tweet at him. He'll kind of review some things. You had a very famous tweet, apparently. You were blowing up your notifications about ugly sweaters.
Yeah, one tweet I had I took a picture of somebody had a great ugly sweater that featured the 3 heads that are on the wall in the Country Bear Jamboree. He made it onto his sweater. So I asked if I could take a picture, tweeted out. One of the hosts of the D23 podcast commented on it, liked it. And so apparently that got picked up by everybody. And apparently he's very big in Japan because a lot of the comments are written in Japanese. And so, which I don't know how to respond to, but it's exciting.
Bunch of old dudes learning how to hashtag on Twitter. Awesome job, Phil. Okay, thanks for listening, guys. If you made it this far, you survived some technical difficulties if you were listening, and some visual mess-ups from my camera, so I apologize about that. Hopefully the editing is not too bad. With that being said, we'll see you next week with a normal show, and have a good one, guys. Take care.
Take care, everyone.